What's going on, guys? It's Frito here for your Overwatch. A South Korean YouTube channel posted a video claiming that Jeff Kaplan might have been responsible for the Overwatch 1 content drought. Yikes. He claims to have insider sources from Blizzard. Let's take a look at a translation of what's being claimed here. Now, this was posted on the Overwatch competitive subreddit by TCGTMS, and it is a third-party translation of a YouTube video, so there might be some things lost in translation. If you do speak Korean and can help us out here, if there's any inaccuracies, let us know in the comment section down below. For now, though, we'll read it as is, and then I'll let you know my thoughts on it, on its legitimacy. For now, it's just a leak. We don't know any of this for a fact, but I think we can start to piece together some of the details. Now, the post links to this video, which is a very large YouTube channel, and it gets summarized here in the Reddit thread. The video says a lot of things that the competitive Overwatch subreddit would already know, but highlights a few bits of new information as well. It claims that his insider information in the past has been very much credible and has a great track record when it comes to things related to Blizzard. So to summarize what was said here, the context is, updating the game with new characters and added content was not part of the game development direction at the start. Thus, the back end was never properly equipped to handle this efficiently in terms of development cycles. This also stemmed from the fact that Team 4 came from a failed MMO development background, Project Titan, as well as having TF2, Team Fortress 2, as a benchmark game, which they have a limited character pool. It was only when Overwatch 1 became a massive success they realized the need to significantly, continuously update with new maps and characters that you would generally expect with any live service game. They shipped the product with the mindset that once this has been released, they can tweak minor things like a non-live service game. In a similar vein, the balancing strategy and mindset from Team 4 from the start was to do minimal balancing with a lot of consideration and aim for perfection infrequently, rather than frequent updates and constant communication with the user base. His source pointed to their approach to StarCraft 1 and 2 balancing as a point of comparison. This changed as League of Legends and other online PvP games brought on a new paradigm of online game balancing. All right, so the translation here in English, I try to correct it here or there when possible for the grammar and whatnot, but what we're getting here, if you don't know, in the history of Blizzard games, StarCraft 1 is a great example of a game that Blizzard barely balanced at all and is very much like a late 90s, early 2000s approach to game dev, where the community and the competitive community especially, instead of expecting the races to be changed much or at all, they just invented new maps. Now, granted, that game had a map editor to allow that to happen, but it wasn't like we expected a constant meta shaking up patch the way that League of Legends does things. It was instead a game that they left alone. Now, I don't know if comparing to StarCraft 2 makes that much sense, because that is a game that they balanced quite frequently. So a little bit odd already that they're saying this. However, I think the evidence does somewhat speak to enforce this claim that, well, someone over there had to think that ending development for the game was something that they could do, right? Or was that just Bobby Kotick? I don't know. I'm a little bit skeptical on whether I actually can put that at the feet of Jeff or not, but the reason why I'm making this video is because some of this other stuff does start to add up for me a little bit. Not so sure on this first point, though. Where we are now, the above context is relevant to Overwatch 2 because this is a game with the same strategy that they took when they started working on Overwatch 2, to fully focus on the development of Overwatch 2 and leaving Overwatch 1 as it is. To Jeff Kaplan, it wasn't necessarily abandoning the project. They just saw it as a non-live service game. Therefore, it was justifiable. Also, they believed that PvE should be the primary focus of Overwatch 2. So leaving Overwatch 1's PvP as it was made sense to them. Unfortunately, they fell into development hell for the PvE portion of Overwatch 2, and he goes into detail regarding the early parts of the video. So obviously everybody knows the Bobby Kotick, COVID, other projects, internal management struggles, like all those things also made a massive problem for Blizzard. But this led to pressure from ABK, which is Activision Blizzard King, leadership regarding the status of Overwatch 2's delivery. And as a result, Jeff Kaplan and Chaco Sonny left, as well as others who believed the initial direction of Overwatch and Overwatch 2 development with a classic Blizzard perfectionist approach. Now, this is important. If you don't know, Blizzard has a historical meme around it that they develop things and they'll come soon TM. Blizzard soon, as they like to call it, because they tend to take so long to make sure everything is perfect in their eyes that they don't release it for a long time. Overwatch 2 in its beta stage obviously isn't that. While I think a lot of it I really, really like, it obviously isn't in that philosophy. It's more of a modern game, closer to League of Legends and Fortnite, where the updates come quick, the balancing needs to be done fast, they expect new content, and it's always kind of seen as a work in progress in tandem with the community. Now, I think that's a modern design to the way gamers expect their games to work now, and waiting forever for a brand new game, well, that's kind of old Blizzard, and I'm not so sure that's even competitive with the pace that the market moves at right now. That's a bit up for debate, but you can see how an old Blizzard dev might still think that that's how games should be developed and doesn't really want to get with the times and push out products earlier than they would like. They want to really perfect it and be proud of what they've done rather than approach that eventually in time. All right, the post goes on and saying, as a result, Walter Kong comes in from Epic Games, who was responsible for new content pipelines for Fortnite as a leadership figure in Overwatch 2. He is known in the game dev circle to be a pragmatist with strong experience in delivering continuous content. It was his decision to split PvE and the PvP portion of Overwatch 2, so the PvP portion of the game is not held hostage to PvE development, which still does not have end in sight. Hence, why the beta for Overwatch 2 was hurried along and bare bones. I'll also point out there was that big leak from Richard Lewis that the Overwatch League owners, who paid multi-millions to get into the league, wanted to hurry along development as well because they didn't want to play another season on the old game when everyone's got their eyes set on the new game and the old game's not getting new content. And so there was a big push to release the PvP early in that regard as well. Moving on, a direct quote from the source that is getting this information from: without change in leadership to Walter, Overwatch players would not have any hands-on experience with Overwatch 2. The only thing they would have seen was endless delays in both showing and delivering the game. Also, this has resulted in a step up from the existing team, who had a very different mindset to Jeff Kaplan and company, which is the name we are more familiar with, Aaron Keller. He takes over leadership of PvP development with much stronger focus on continued engagement and content updates. TLDR, under Jeff Kaplan, the initial development to Overwatch 1 and Overwatch 2 had a perfectionist approach without consideration for continuous content pipeline. Walter Kong and Aaron Keller takes on the new school of live service model, much more like other online games compared to the previous approach. Overwatch 2 PvE is still a question mark, but Overwatch 2 PvP beta wouldn't have been a thing if there was no change in the development direction. There is apparently another video coming up detailing the behind-the-scenes information regarding 5v5 and Rollock next week as well. If quite interested on where these leaks will go next, I think it's interesting that 5v5 and Rollock is a big area of discussion. I'll note that there was a survey sent out in South Korea asking if Overwatch 2 should only have open queue. Like, what would you prefer, roll queue and open queue, or to get rid of roll queue entirely? And it has always been the case that in South Korea, they actually prefer open queue and take it much more seriously than we do in the West. They prefer the queue times and the flexibility of the strategies that open queue affords. Whereas I would say in the West, we don't really have a culture of working together as well. So oftentimes the gameplay devolves into madness if there isn't the roles assigned before the game. There might be like continuous conflict from inside the team shown there. With this leak, I'm of two minds with it, because on one hand, I happen to know that a lot of that old school, maybe let's say hard-headed development approach to Overwatch 1 was definitely present in the way that the developers interacted with the community, their demands and expectations of the game. It always seemed kind of out of sync with other games that were considered live service games. Now, I'm not so sure I can take the literal translation that Jeff didn't expect it to be a live service game, because he himself publicly said that the game should have a heartbeat, which is what Aaron Keller kicked off again when he came out with the apology developer update video saying that they want to continuously add more stuff to the game. That was always like part of it, and they had so much free content in terms of the cinematics that were live on YouTube. I think the content pipeline existing for at least a term was always a thing, and I felt like that was a huge selling point to the success of Overwatch 1. Whereas these other games added new characters and you had to pay for them, which kind of felt a little pay to win. If the new character was something you needed to compete, you have to either use the in-game currency like in League of Legends or pay for it outright in order to get the new content. Well, Overwatch 1 distinctly wasn't like that. You paid one price and got all the new content, but I think also it does make sense to have some credibility that someone over there must have thought it was okay to stop releasing content. I assumed it was Bobby Kotick, but this leak is trying to say that it was more of the old school mentality of Jeff Kaplan. What makes me really curious about this is that if you're a fan of this channel and you've watched a lot of our content covering this, I think you might recall me prodding to this idea, like questioning, like, was there a reset on Overwatch 2 at some point where they said, nope, we got to go a different direction with a completely different strategy and go for 5v5 and all this rest of it? And did it come around when Jeff Kaplan was leading up to leave the game, right? Because he was part of BlizzCon Online, but seemingly was kind of passing the torch to Aaron Keller. Everyone else was getting more mic time, and it was almost like Jeff Kaplan's final goodbye as he drifts into the background, and then a few months later would fully quit from the company with a very ominous goodbye. An almost Gandhi-esque quote: "Never accept the world as it appears to be, always dare to see it for what it could be. I hope you do the same." Is this what he was talking about? That Activision Blizzard was going to force him to rush out Overwatch 2, so he left the company over it? Keep in mind as well, this was before the lawsuits hit, which that seemed to be a good reason to exit the company quickly before that started to kick off. Another maybe like counter argument I want to put forward to this is that Jeff Kaplan got on stage talking about redefining the sequel, that Overwatch 2 would upgrade Overwatch 1, give you a ton new content, and no one would be left behind if you were a multiplayer player from Overwatch 1. That was always a little odd, especially in the climate of free-to-play games that just update all the time anyway. It always seemed a little tone deaf comparing to other multiplayer games that always get content, mainly because maybe their business model is a little exploitative, but it didn't hit the impact that they were looking for. However, it did, to me anyway, show that there was a conflict between Jeff Kaplan and Bobby Kotick, where Bobby Kotick's model is trying to make all their products billion-dollar IPs that they can just sell year on year, aka Call of Duty, which makes new sequels constantly and then has DLC packs and skin packs and all these other extra ways to monetize. Well, Jeff Kaplan very distinctly didn't want those things, I think. If you look at how fair Overwatch 1 was, almost to the detriment of the game, where there wasn't continuous pipelines of money built in. So part of what the leak says makes sense. Like, there isn't a system in place for endless development for Overwatch 1. Like, that wasn't the goal, because there isn't exploitative monetization like there is in other games. I think it's more likely the case that Jeff Kaplan's initial plan was to make Overwatch 2 in time for when Overwatch 1 kind of ran out of steam to be able to be followed up on. Guys, that's everything for today's crazy news video. Let me know your thoughts on all this in the comment section down below. Is it likely that Jeff Kaplan may have been the leadership problem to a lot of Overwatch's woes? If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave it with a like, and don't forget to hit the bell icon next to the subscribe button so that you get notified directly to your cell phone when new Your Overwatch videos come out. Don't miss an upload. Click the bell right now. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for Your Overwatch. We'll see you guys next time.